Today I'm going to share with you some personal experiences which laid the foundation of growth in my life. In 1978, when I was just 18 months old, I lost my father. In those days, it was not advisable for women to live alone. So my mother's elder sister came to our rescue by offering us shelter at her home. When we were battling for a good life, my mother had big plans to serve the poor. In those days, she would strongly believe in the culture of giving. My mother would often donate to an NGO for the welfare of underprivileged children. I would hate that because she would deprive me of finest things in this world. She would often say, when you give unconditionally, you will receive much more. And would say, someday, I hope, my son, you learn this lesson of giving. I would never believe in her thoughts. Because she had strong belief in giving, I grew up wearing hand-me-down clothes. The concept of reduce, reuse, and recycle, which is being extensively promoted these days, is something which has been part of my life since childhood. I still remember when I was growing up, after watching one movie in which both actor and actress moved extensively in roller skates, I made a strong demand to my mother that I want a pair of roller skates. Out of concern, my mother said, of all the things in the world, why you want roller skates? You will get hurt because the roads in our neighborhood are not that great. And dramatically I said, where there is will, there is way. Somehow she got convinced and took me to the store which sold sports goods. When we met the salesperson, all the skates which he was showing were way beyond our budget. We had no choice except to walk out of the store. While we were walking out of the store, I believe the salesperson saw me dejected and came running behind us and said, why don't you come back? I have another pair which I can show you, which I can sell you at 50% discount. When we went back, the salesperson went inside and came back with 2 skates in each one of his hands. The skate in his left hand was meant for my left leg, which had green wheels. The skate in his right hand was meant for my right leg, which had red wheels. My mother was trying to convince me to go for this, and I was like, no, I don't want to go for this because I will become a joke in my neighborhood. The salesperson was watching our conversations. He said, instead of 50%, I will give you 60% discount. And when my mother heard that, she said, you better go for this, otherwise forget about skating. Then she repeated the same words, where there is will, there is way. I decided to go for the skates. When I got back home, in those days, skates came with wheels which had a key. So I removed all the wheels from the skate. I made some minor adjustments. After making minor adjustments, I had skates which had front wheel as green and back wheels as red. When I was riding on these skates in my neighborhood, almost everybody inquired, where did I get these skates from? And I would always refer them to the store and with a glee on my face, end the conversation by saying, by the way, these skates are custom made. So moving forward in life, in 1997, my college in which I was studying got into an agreement with one of the leading universities in New Jersey for a management program. I thought this is a great opportunity to study and work in the United States of America. I told my mother about this. Since my mother had limited savings, she opted for voluntary retirement so she could finance my education. The money which she got from the retirement was only enough to take care of my first semester expenses. Since my mother had already taken the risk, I decided to get out of my comfort zone and leave for United States of America with limited funding. After landing in the United States, first thing I did was went and met the dean of the university. I narrated my entire story of highs and lows to the dean of the university and pleaded to him, sir, I would be grateful to you if you could help me get financial aid for my second semester. I promise you that I'll pay back the entire amount when I get my first job. After hearing me out, the dean said, "There is nothing I can do for you. You have come in the spring semester. Most of the funding is given out during the fall semester. You have 6 months to arrange $6,000. Otherwise, get ready to pack your bags to go back to India." When I heard that, I was devastated. I was able to envision my future brimming with haziness. And I was thinking, looks like I have made the worst decision of my life by getting out of my comfort zone. While I was walking out of Dean's cabin with these negative thoughts around me, I bumped into a friend of mine who was curious to know what had just happened. I told him everything. After hearing me out, he gave me 2 valuable suggestions. His first suggestion was that I must opt for classes which are from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. His second suggestion was that with the day free in hand, I should look for job opportunities. By this time, I had done some groundwork and found out that as a student on student visa, I can only work 20 hours a week. And that too, I can maximum get paid on campus is $10 an hour. So with those calculations, I realized the maximum I can make in a month is around $800 to $900. That meant in 6 months, after taking care of my monthly expenses, the maximum I will be able to save was $2,500. When my friend heard about this, he said, "Who is asking you to work on the campus? Go to New York City. There are thousands of people working on cash jobs, and I'm sure you will find your way and you will be able to achieve your target." Just imagine if you're not able to achieve your target, you'll have to go back to India and think about your mother and the neighbors, how they will condemn you. You will be a total failure. When I heard that, I could again envision what I had just seen while walking out of Dean's cabin, and I took his suggestions very seriously. Next morning, I found myself in New York City, knocking doors in some of the busiest avenues and streets, looking for a job. Wherever I went, doors were getting shut on my face. Everybody said the same thing: "You have come at a wrong time. We are coming to an end of Christmas. End of Christmas means end of season. There is nothing we can do for you." After a few days of struggle, I bumped into an elevator into a tall, kind Indian gentleman. I'm not sure why I ended up narrating my entire story of highs and lows. I told him how I managed to get to New York City. I believe this was the first elevator pitch of my life. When this gentleman heard my story, he said, "Why don't you leave a copy of your credentials and come back and see me after a few days?" In my mind, I was thinking, even this door is shut. After a few days, I went and met this gentleman. He handed over an envelope. This envelope had a check of $6,000. Would you all like to know where did this person get this check of $6,000? He managed to get this check from a friend who was trustee in the same NGO where my mother used to donate regularly in India. My dear friends, $6,000 in those days, in late 90s, meant a lot of money. For someone like me, it was like climbing Mount Everest, who has never climbed a mountain in his life. This whole experience made me realize the value of my mother, the learning which she was trying to give. When you give unconditionally, you receive much more. Soon I deposited the check in the university's bank account. And unfortunately, I completely overlooked and forgot about the experience of giving I had, a personal experience. I was nearing my graduation day. A professor of mine asked me, "Your parents, your family must be very happy to see you graduate in few weeks from now." I said, "Sir, I wish they could be here. Unfortunately, in India, if you are unemployed or retired, it's next to impossible to get a US visa." To my surprise, this professor wrote a letter to the US consulate and reached out to his contacts to the US Immigration Office. Within 48 hours, my family had a 6 months US visa stamped on their passport. I couldn't believe in a week's time my family was with me in the United States. After my graduation, I thought I'll give my family some good experience which is enjoyable and memorable. So I took them to Las Vegas, because in Las Vegas there are many themed hotels where you could get the experience of rest of the world. By being there, I showed them Eiffel Tower of Paris. Then I gave them the experience of being in Venice in Italy, and a lot more. After my family left United States, I was living a normal life. I had a good job where I was making good money. But I always felt some emptiness in my heart. I felt there is a gap which yet needs to be filled. Now I would like to share with you an experience which not only helped me fill the gap, but also laid the foundation of growth in my life. In 2005, a friend of mine asked me and my wife if we would like to serve in an eye camp in a town known as Barsana, which is not too far from Delhi. We saw this as a good opportunity to serve the underprivileged. Since we were not doctors, the task which we were given in this eye camp was to create awareness in different villages so people could come. I still remember in one of the villages, while we were creating awareness, it had become dark. We lost track of time, and I was telling my wife, it's better we go back now to Barsana. In those days, it wasn't easy to find transport in remote parts of India to go from one place to another. You had to most of the time hitchhike. So we were just kind of, confused, how will we get back to Barsana? There was a lady, I believe, who heard our conversation. Although she didn't know English, she walked up to us and said, both of you seem to be lost. Is there anything I can do for you? So we inquired from her, where will we get transport to go back to Barsana? She said, it has become late now. Why don't you stay at my place and leave tomorrow morning? Now, being from a city, getting this kind of hospitality was something which we couldn't digest, staying in the house of a stranger. So we politely refused, saying that, we have something urgent which we need to take care of in Barsana, so we have to go back tonight. So she said, in that case, why don't you come to my place and eat something? And in the meanwhile, I will make arrangements for you to go back to Barsana. So while we were having food, but she already made arrangements so that we could get to Barsana. The food which I had in this lady's place, I can tell you, was one of the best meals I have ever had in my life. This lady, a simple lady of Barsana, did not have a bank account which had millions of dollars. She did not have a big mansion. She did not have a big car, but she had a heart which was as big as the ocean. By her example, this lady taught me that anybody can give, irrespective of one's status in this world. This lady was teaching me the principle which my mother always wanted to learn, the principle of unconditional giving. After we came back to Mumbai, after having this experience, we made an attempt to apply some of these learnings in our day-to-day life. And honestly, from my own experience, I can tell you, since then, we have never looked back. We have only experienced exponential growth and inner fulfillment. To conclude, I would like to state, all of us in this world have a limited shelf life. It took me over a decade to learn a small lesson of giving. All of you in this room seem to be more intelligent than me. Please incorporate the culture of giving in your day-to-day life so that you can have a meaningful life. There is a saying, we make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. Thank you very much.